we have been in conversation with renowned translator, film critic, theatre critic, Shomik Bandhopadhyay. In the first part, we spoke to him about his works on translation, and he's given us very interesting points about the difference between the translations of Gayatri Spivak on Draupadi, as well as what were his experiences with Mahashweta Devi's translation on Draupadi like. In the second part now, we will speak to him about his understanding of theatre, and also this year we celebrate IPTA's 75th anniversary. So let's talk to him about that. So we learnt, you informed us actually, that IPTA celebrates its silver jubilee this year. This calls for some kind of reminiscing, and you were also telling me that you were part of a certain celebration of the movement in Patna. Could you begin with that?
In Patna, the All India IPTA celebrated for about a week the Platinum Jubilee. And what was wonderful was that, and very moving, there was a large demonstration for the opening, and the demonstration ended at a stadium which accommodates about 5,000 people, which was full. And it was formally inaugurated by Shabana Azmi, who said in her opening words that, in a sense, she was born in the IPTA because she was born in the commune where the Central Cultural Squad of the Communist Party, which later became the IPTA, they were stationed, and Kaifi Azmi and his wife, they were there, and she was literally born in the commune. And she said that her mother was not her only mother. The other great women artists like Reba Roy Chaudhary, Priti Banerjee, Shanta Gandhi, Deena Gandhi, they were also her mothers because they were all nurturing her and caring for her. And that what was more interesting was that on that stage, in two rows, we had Syed Mirza, we had Kanchi Alaya, we had Kanhaiya Kumar, we had Jignesh Mevani, we had Sanjana, we had Nagin, Habib's daughter, we had Raina. I was also there. So, and what was politically, culturally significant was that Jignesh and Kanhaiya were sitting on the front row and exchanging notes almost throughout. And Kanchi Alaya was sitting literally next to them. They all spoke, and it was wonderful when Jignesh referred to one of Theo's letter to Van Gogh, written from the village where he had gone and living with the fishermen and the farmers. And he sends a set of paintings to his brother Theo and tells Theo that he would get the smell of the fields, of the grain, of the farming of the grain itself from the paintings.
True.
So when a young political figure goes back to culture and brings in this reference, this was quite electrifying. And just a month ago, I had seen two of the major Bengali directors, younger directors, Kaushik Sen and Anjan Dutt. They were together doing a play, which was about a young corporate success honcho who has this strange psychological pull, and he gets to see and encounter Van Gogh in his dreams. And that is a neurosis which he tries to cure. And a very powerful play called Tarai Tarai in the Stars. And so even as I was listening to Jignesh, I sent off 2 SMS messages to both Anjun and Kaushik that the Van Gogh story, with its critique of corporatism, consumerism, working its way into a later phase of politics, a phase into which we are looking. And that is happening on the platform of the IPTA. And the next speaker was Kanchalaya, who spoke about the differences between Dalit politics and the left politics and the divisiveness that has been injected into it. And then he said, well, this evening, I'll be saying at the end of my speech, Lal Salam, and you reply with your Zindabad. Then I'll follow it up with my Neel Salam, and you're going to be your Zindabad again. And this happened. So a lot of what I would say the extension, enrichment of the cultural left was happening right there.
Right.
And in the following days, there were a number of very important seminars, and in which people like Gauhar Raza and others were taking part. Syed Mirza was very much there in the seminars. We had the legendary Sambhaji Bhagat. I heard Sambhaji sing for the first time on 2 different evenings. And performances by 1,500 artists from all over India, representing the different branches of the IPTA. So, in a way, it was not nostalgia. It was IPTA living up to and facing the challenges of the cultural left right today.
Is there a sentiment or is there an understanding that the IPTA has died, or has it not continued? Because one would imagine that there are these regional sort of politics and movements and performances, but there hasn't been across regions a sort of more mobilized form of theatre.
One of the excuses, I would say, that has often been given for the collapse of the IPTA has been that the party or the left, they intervened too much and didn't allow the artists their freedom, their individual artistic freedom. And that's why they all lifted and drifted away. Now, I'm studying the history of IPTA quite closely, and I'm not convinced about this argument. I think it's more of an excuse. And the basic thing has been that these artists, in the given politics, in the given cultural politics of our country, or any capitalist country, they would like to be the successful, commercially successful, popular artist. So they make a choice. So there's a sort of an early idealism. I owe something to the people, I owe something to the cause of the left, of socialism, etc. But then when it comes in the way of his further extension of popularity, standing, capital, then he moves away, and then that becomes excuse. So this is an issue that we should reopen rather than swallow that argument that it's all the party boss interfering.
Is there a divide between a people's movement and a people's theatre? Because, for example, if I talk about the Kisan March, even during the march, while the march, there are performances of them, within them. And there seems to be that, the citizen position, the activist position, the artist position are then blurring, because if the farmers are then. Would you like to, reflect on that?
What's happening, as you must have noticed, is that the organized party leadership, or even the leadership of, as it had been earlier, these patterns have somehow collapsed.
Okay.
So, new national organizations, new inclusive organizations are emerging. And they are taking on the leadership. And since these are not defined, directed, set up by the party, it is a whole different kind of mobilization. So, this mobilization throws up artistic manifestations, artistic expressions. And we really do not have any documentation, any close study of how these performances emerged out of the movement. So it is very difficult to comment on how they happened.
Right.
Because earlier it was the central organization with the party behind it, or in some cases there had been 2 or 3 parties of the left together. That happened in the AITUC or in the All India Kisan Sabha. They are deciding, they are asking people to produce performances, create performances. That system has gone. It's a whole different situation, and we don't have any documentation. In fact, it's part of the nature of these movements not to reveal or expose the plans, the mobilization beforehand. You must have realized that when the march took place, it was unprecedented and it came as a total surprise. Now, obviously, it didn't happen spontaneously. It was solid organization had gone behind it.
Absolutely.
But look at the nature of the organization. It's a clandestine organization because of the nature of the state and the increase in the surveillance of the state. So, political mobilization and the cultural products that will grow out of this mobilization, these have come into a wholly different situation and construction. So we don't have a clear picture of that. This is at one level.
Right.
At another level, what is happening is that since the organized official political left is not that visible, not that active, there are small local initiatives shaping. I see a lot of that in West Bengal. I can't speak for the rest of India. And the way these emerge, there are 2 elements that go into the making of these non-party politico-cultural entities that are arising in district towns, even smaller towns, but unfortunately not in universities. That is also significant and it should be mentioned. So it is beyond the universities, outside the universities. Invariably what happens, a group comes together, which in most cases I have found have the support of the left party, the political left. But the political left, the official political left, maintains a sort of distance. and allows this to happen, gives some support, but lets it have an independent identity and an independent space. The two spaces in which they operate, these loose organizations, A, they ask somebody to come, give a long talk on an issue which they decide upon,
Right.
which can be directly political, on an immediate political issue, or it can be an issue which brings culture and politics together. So there is this meeting, somebody talks, not a panel discussion, not a seminar format, not 5 different points of view, one against another, nothing of the kind. Let us have one man's view,
Right.
and the entire group responds, interacts, asks questions. So the speaker speaks for an hour, and the discussion continues for much more than an hour.
Right.
So this is one space, a space of discourse,
Sure.
a space where doubts, uncertainties, questions are attempted to be resolved. The other is performance of different kinds.
Right.
And in most cases, these performances are performances that they put up. As long as the political left was in power and authority in West Bengal, it was more theatre groups who would be invited to perform on these occasions. But somehow, with these big theatre groups playing safe, playing a popular, acceptable performance scenario, a performance market, I would say, these issues that have to be closely addressed and explored, these are no longer the concerns of the established theatre groups. So those plays don't mean anything, don't serve any purpose. So whatever they can make out of their resources, and sometimes maybe, I've had occasions when they ask me to give one of these talks, and they arrange it in such a manner that either before or after they have one of their productions, or maybe the next day.
Right. Moving from theatre to film, and especially because you brought up this point about a more popular, acceptable form or a dilution of that manner, film is somehow in our cultural space and amongst audience. Relationship with film is more popular. It's sort of seen as a form that's more accessible to one. It's more massy in that and that kind. And I want to specifically quote from one of your one of your comments on Mrinal Sen's translation of the film, the script that you did on In Search of Famine, and you made a very interesting comment. You said that Bangla film did not enter into the socio-political complexities of the 1970s. So this emblematization of the angry young man of Kolkata could relate only to the rural other, only on the plane of a Marxist theory. So this speaks of a certain polarity between the urban youth and the rural sort of brethren, which is to say that you can only talk to him, relate to him on a position of the other. There's no real connect. Now, this could be said about, so this is a very specific, this comment is situated in a specific ethos, I understand that. But if I'm to talk about films in general and the angry young man trope that has been a massy trope across film genres, this has been a recurrent problem, and it somehow even continues till date. When I talk about any kind of film that seems to take a standpoint, the positioning is always a little wrong. It's either somebody who's speaking for or against, that kind of a thing. which is still a very alarming concern in our cultural space even today. And then discussions around it are then even more disturbing. So what are the shortcomings of this approach? How have we not been able to overcome these shortcomings even in a contemporary space? So there has always been this discord that even Ray used to talk about, say that when I'm talking about a film that's set in, say, a decade below, then it seems like a historical period drama, and that I can be more faithful to. But when I talk about contemporary society, then it seems as though my positioning is politically. What are the shortcomings of this, and how does a critic understand this, engage with that space?
What has happened meanwhile, after Ray or Mrinal, that whole generation, is that the popular itself, the whole concept of the popular, the reach of the popular, this has been totally capitalized in a massive manner. Particularly when Ray or Sen or Ghatak, etc., or Sham and others, when they were making the films, the media would give film reviews, not much beyond the reviews.
Right.
But the presence of the media now, every day you have a film supplement. And the kind of film that they promote, the features, the aspects, the elements of the film that they promote. The media, with the capital's investment in the media in a big way, and the support that the state gives it. So, capital, media, and the state acting together have created a monster of the supposed popular cinema. And it has really swept aside the attempt that was being made in the 50s, 60s, till the 70s to create a parallel cinema where there is a critical engagement, whatever be the limitations. The directors were speaking of their own uncertainties, doubts, sharing these with the audience, even their own failures and incapacitors. But all that thing has been just swept aside. And also the valorization of the star, where the stars become MPs, dumb MPs who never speak. But in the election campaigns, in the projection of the star, cinema becomes a very powerful tool in the hands of capital in collaboration with state and media. So, talking about cinema, talking about those problems of cinema that you're raising, they become irrelevant.
Since you shared with us the event that you attended, and I can imagine an image of Kachalaya sitting with Jignesh Mewani, sitting with Kanhaiya Kumar, as somebody who understands the cultural left, what is the way forward for a cultural left to proceed? Because on the one hand, there are issues of identity politics that we might call, which is, like you pointed out, there are women issues, there are Dalit issues, which are solid identity issues. On the other hand, there has to be a broader collective that sort of takes the movement forward. And even issues that we call identity issues are also springing from a very genuine standpoint of the person belonging in that socio-economic matrix. So those are sincere positions as well. What is the way forward for a cultural left? And I'm taking film and theatre together.
Two things here. A, in Bengal at least, I don't know of other states, there is an initiative now. There's an organization very active, very dedicated, called the People's Film Collective, who are regularly screening documentaries. The latest was Anand Patwardhan was there with his new film. He showed it, a long discussion with him. So they're doing it regularly. they began initially at a particular place, site, where at least twice a month they would have 6-hour-long sessions of these documentaries with the directors present, discussions, etc. But then they have started moving into college spaces, local club spaces with a package, and often taking the directors along if they're available. So that is a movement that is happening, which has never happened in cinema. The Film Society movement, which was very exciting in Bengal in the 50s, 60s, 70s, was more elitist. But this is going much beyond those frontiers. And with the documentary films, we have the advantage that in a half-an-hour film, in a 20-minute film, Anand's film is an exception, that's different. But in most of these cases, with a half-an-hour film, which addresses sometimes the Dalit issue, sometimes the issue of the forest dwellers who are being thrown out of the spaces, the women, other communities and groups, you can address that issue as a takeoff from the film. Because here is evidence, here is a slice of reality, the problem articulated, take off from there. And it allows you this whole extension of the areas of different problems, different sectors. That is happening with cinema. So cinema becomes a sort of a tool, but it's a documentary.
Yes.
There's no feature because in the feature world, it's safe sailing. We have to go to the festivals. To go to the festivals, you need the endorsement of the government. You need to have a smooth sailing through censorship. These considerations have virtually killed the feature cinema. But the documentary has found a new life and a new scope. And in theatre, not the more established, recognized theatre, but these small theatre experiences that are growing in the districts, in the small places. There have emerged in Bengal 2 or 3 theatre villages where a small group of people are making a living, not through theatre, maybe set up a poultry, set up a small fishery. So about 13 people or 14 people can live together in that space, get the living from there and do theatre. So these are optional alternative spaces which are emerging in cinema and theatre. And at one point I would hope that they would add together and contribute to the larger space of the cultural left.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Thank you for watching, and make sure you check out our first part as well. For more such interesting conversations, follow our channel, the Indian Writers Forum, subscribe and share this interview. Thank you.